I was just really enjoy being on the network with you. I want to is that what
Right,
it is? I
exactly.
like being on the network with you, Dan. It's
Likewise, brother.
it's good, man. Thanks for making the time. I appreciate you being here today. It's the Mindful Dude Show on Play Hard and Love Big Radio. Nick Clark and Dan Nevins. Follow Play Hard and Love Big Radio and look for the Mindful Dude Show. This is the third one that's rolling out, and I'm feeling good about it, man. It's been lifting me up every 2 weeks. I just get a burst of badass energy from you, Dan.
Likewise, brother. I look forward to it. I was on the road for like a week plus, and I was like, I got to get home for the podcast. Like it's this one little like sort of pearl in my week. Um, it occurs in my calendar like work, but it is like actually like a break, which is awesome.
It's actually like playtime for us.
It's actually time to love hard,
That's right. It's
play
time to
big.
love
It's
hard,
weird.
man. It is. It's weird how that worked out like that. Must be the intention of the podcast.
Oh
Play
wait,
hard,
play
love big.
hard. I got it back.
People mess it up
Whatever.
all the time. It may take a couple decades for it to land for people, man. But you look like you got some sunshine, actually, or is that just the new light you're using?
No, no, it's not. It's actually an old light I'm using. Uh,
New 30 years ago.
right? Yeah, it's it's like, oh, you remember me? It's going out of this little storage spot. If it just falls down in the middle, like that'll tell you something about where it's been. No, I've been in the sun and trying to play some golf when I can. So sun's got to get the vitamin D.
Got to get it. It's healthy for you. Where were you? What were you up to?
So I was in Baltimore, and then went through Atlanta. And where'd I go? San Antonio, Texas. Baltimore, then San Antonio. So Baltimore, I did a keynote for the ICISF, the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. So basically, all first responders that respond in crisis emergencies. So that was really great. Met so many great people, not only in that organization, but then obviously the first responder community that's intricately involved. And I not met, I saw a dude I went to high school with. See, I grew up in Baltimore. So one of the dudes I went to high school with was randomly at one of the booths representing Baltimore City Fire Department.
Oh wow.
And I just heard him talking. I was like, I know that voice. I turned around. He goes, hey, I know you. I'm like, hey, I know you. And we got some photos together and stuff. And it was really cool. Um, and then I saw some friends that I went to high school with that sort of made it out. Went to my buddy Bobby's restaurant, which is called Atlantic Food and Spirits. If you're
Hmm.
ever in Catonsville, Maryland, between Catonsville uh, and Ellicott City, there's a really amazing restaurant called Atlantic Food and Spirits. So I'm from Baltimore, right? So crab cakes are like the thing.
Huh.
And there's a place by BWI Airport called G&M, which is, I always tell people, this is the best crab cake you're going to get. And they've won awards. And allegedly, Oprah gets them flown in like twice a month or something like that. They have a big mail order business too because their crab cakes are so legendary.
Wow.
But I tried the crab cake at Atlantic and it was just as good, if not better. And I was like, that is saying something. And so I got to see like my friends. I mean, some of these people I hadn't seen in like 30 years, and it was really good. And it was like no time had passed. That's how you know that you've shared some stuff as kids. We were talking about field parties where we used to just drink in the field before cell phones existed, and like how dangerous that actually was. And we were just laughing because we all have kids, right? We all like my daughter's 31, and so everybody has kids between like 30 and 12, somewhere in there. And we were just laughing at ourselves of all the things that we used to do.
Yeah, it's somewhat amazing that we survived some of those things. I mean, when I look
Mm-hmm.
back, I'm like, how did I survive that? What the hell was I doing? But
Exactly.
in the moment, it didn't appear like that. In the moment, it seemed like a
No.
damn good idea, man.
Right, exactly. When it just helps me because my daughter's 31 and she's fine, but I have a 15-year-old and an 8-year-old. So it reminds me, especially like being refreshed on what it was like to be a kid. It informs my parenting to be, I'm sure these are the same feelings that they have going on. Like your parents don't know anything. right? Like, of course, they know nothing about what it's like. And when you're 15, you feel like you are a full blown adult and you're capable of making all your own decisions and navigating life. And it's so not true. And though, it helps me approach the parenting from understanding where she is most likely mentally, and then having that inform how I parent. And I think it's been pretty effective.
That makes sense. I mean, you're basically, it drops you back into that space when you were making what could be similar decisions. And
Exactly.
then you can really like empathize with other decisions that she's making at the place where she's at. You're not like living from like 20 years older than her anymore. You have the ability to transform back to where you were, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
I had that as
Completely
a
accurate.
kind of funny and interesting. I revisited some old friends last night. Sounds so
Nice.
weird, but my dad, when he came a couple months ago, he brought my big bin of baseball cards from. I had them at my mom's house. I have tons of baseball cards that I collected, and I don't know, up until the point when I turned like 13 or whatever and got interested in girls and all the different things, and then I quit collecting baseball cards and
Right,
started doing
right.
other things, but a
Right.
couple of funny things about it is that for a long time when I used to go back to visit my family in Colorado, I'd buy some weed.
Yeah.
And the only place I really remember hiding it, but putting it was in my baseball card collection, like in this big
Okay.
bin. So my dad rolls in and he drops this big bin off, and I'm like looking through there with my kids, and all of a sudden Sawyer pulls out this bag of like just like crumpled up, you couldn't tell what it was, but crumpled up
Right.
old joints and things. I'm like, oh, give
Right.
me that. I'm gonna take that and throw it away. And I'm like, you know what? We shouldn't be looking through baseball cards right now. How about you guys head inside? So I'm like digging through there and whatever. And so I wasn't smoking weed last night. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
But the other thing
Right.
I found is, I thought that was just a funny side note, but
It is great.
the other thing that I found was a bunch of old pictures and like cards and stuff. And I hadn't gone through those yet. I'm just kind of was like, oh, well, what they are. Or maybe I wasn't really ready to go through them. But last night I was going through and I found like a bunch of old notes from this girl that I used to date. And she broke my heart, dude. Broke my
Been there.
heart. Oh
Been
my
there.
God. And I like started looking at these pictures and these notes from her, and I'm reading them. And there's like a bunch of detailed ones about like how sorry she hurt me. It's better for me, all these things. And I'm like, whoa, I all of a sudden started getting emotional a little bit. I'm like, whoa, this is weird.
Remembering.
I can't believe like that I was able to transport. It was like 2000, and I think it might have been like 1999, dude. Like transport into those emotions, but I did have that moment last night where I was like, you know what? When Owen and Sawyer are teenagers and they have that girl that breaks their heart, like I know what that feels like. I'll
Heck
be able
yeah.
to be there for them. So that's what that reminded me of, what you're speaking of. But yeah, being able to
That's
kind of
great.
like remember the emotion.
Well, it's also funny too. Like, there's a bunch of books, but for some reason, Bessel van der Kolk's "Your Body Keeps the or The Body Keeps the Score" book is coming to mind. Like, when you're never fully healed from like a traumatic heartbreak, it lives inside you, and it might be pushed off, it's stored in your tissue somewhere, uh, and then it takes a trigger, like the CDs. No, I hate the word trigger, but it takes something to sort of activate that, and then it's almost like those memories are released back into your bloodstream to be like, hey, do you want to deal with it now?
Mm.
Are you ready to just get completely through this now? And I've had that experience a bunch of times. And I'm not saying you didn't clean that up or whatever, but it's funny how old things you've completely forgotten about will just like show up and hit you.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and I agree with you. I don't think that I completely had dealt with it. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize the amount of hurt that was going on at that age in my life. I was like, I kind of just slapped on my soccer shoes and started playing a lot of ball, and
There
put
you
my
go.
attention on that, and then built a successful career from playing soccer and whatnot. But I don't think I ever really stopped and had the mindfulness or the tools to like really like process it until
Mm-hmm.
just lately, when I'm like, why do I have these, and what is this, so
And you kept them.
right, for
You could have
whatever
thrown them
reason.
away. Yeah, you
Right.
kept them.
But last night it was cool. Like I went through them, looked at them, and I was like, had some tears and stuff come up, and then I was like, you know what, I don't need these anymore. I'm good.
That's great.
And I like threw them away and I felt good about it. I'm like, sweet, they're gone, you know? And like, and not that experience is gone, but that like, just, I don't need to hold on to it anymore. I got an amazing life. I understand how to deal with my emotions in a much more sensible way now, you know? So it's kind of cool, man. So that's sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're, and revisiting old friends like you're talking about always brings up cool stories and different things, you know, that you would you'd never remember unless you're in connection with them. You never think of it.
Yeah, we were dying laughing the whole time. I remember, oh man, it might be not safe to share, but I'll say this too, because just before I forget, the story when you were telling me about opening the cards and how you used to store your weed from back in the day in there.
Yeah.
The story actually, in my head, I was like, what I thought you were going to say. And it's funny how we do that, right? We always like interrupt the connection of somebody with like my thought I want to contribute to the conversation. But in my head, I was like, I thought you were going to say, I remember putting this stuff in there. So I looked for it and it wasn't there. And then my dad was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I thought you were... That's where I thought that story was going.
Or like, you know, I like called my mom and she's like not making sense and she's like not finishing her stories. And it's like, just happens to be the week that she looked through the bin and sent it with my dad. Like, wait a second, you've been smoking my weed from 2002?
Fifth grade. That sounds it's very bad. What I just said. From high school?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Look, people, if you want to get into balance, you got to come out of balance. And there's a lot of balance that I came out of in my life, you know? And I'm glad to be getting back into it, man.
So I maybe will share this story. And I don't know if it'll make the edit, but I'm going to share anyway. Talking about bad decisions in high school. So my buddy who owns this restaurant, which is phenomenal, like we were both skateboarders, and he was legitimately the best skateboarder anywhere near our town. He was like very, very good. Could have easily turned pro if situations lined up differently, and they didn't. But and everything works out the way it should. But we were talking about those good old days, and Bobby was the guy that somehow had access to LSD, and so we used to sometimes. You know, we didn't grow up in the best of neighborhoods, but we used to do that every once in a while. And children, if you're listening, don't do it. It's a bad idea. Kids, don't do it. Adults, don't do it. It's a bad idea. That said, every time I did it, it was the best time I ever had in my life. It was so much fun, right? So we used to go to the BWI airport. There's this field, it had this park where the planes would land, and we just thought that was really cool. We were telling a story about how I was committed. Again, this is why it's bad. You ever see when you're in a plane and you're landing, you see like red lights blinking on the ground, and those red lights are to inform the planes. I'm sure there's some sort of purpose, like exactly why they're there and how far they are spaced apart.
Yeah.
Well, in reality, those lights on the ground are surrounded by a giant cage with like beams and razor wire to protect the light. But for some reason, I just needed to go touch this light. And everyone's like, don't go touch the light. And I'm like, I'm touching this light. And I skillfully navigated this contraption to touch the light and came back out unscathed, which is a miracle in and of itself. Well, at the end of that night, so we all get back to my house, and my dad is never home. My mom left when I was like 13. So it was basically my house is where people went because there's probably not going to be a parent home. And then so I went to my house, and we are just in the sort of throes of this experience, and we opened the refrigerator. There was like 5 of us, and in the refrigerator my dad had baked a chicken, and the chicken carcass for some reason was just still sitting in there. It's just like a carcass of a chicken with maybe a little bit of meat on it, and it was like a perfectly preserved skeleton. And if you're under the influence of a hallucinogen / psychedelic at the time, that's a very trippy experience. I just remember Bobby with he had this like bucket hat on, and a reflective band that people wear on their arms when they run was around his neck.
A what kind of hat? A bucket hat? Like a
bucket hat.
Bucket hat.
You know, like it's flat on top and comes down, and there's a brim all the way around.
Okay, bucket hat and a reflector around his arms. Yeah.
But no, the type of reflector that goes on your arm when you're running, but it was around his neck. He just looks at the chicken like, I'm going to do my best. And he goes, We just lost it. It was the dumbest, it was the dumbest thing in the world. But we had the best time. We re-shared that story in our little small group, and it was just like bringing us back home. It's powerful, the sort of nostalgia of memories, good people, and good times. But again, as kids, say no to drugs. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. However, it's a core memory.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Good story. Since we're on it, since we're on this, I gotta tell you about the first time I ever drank tequila. I mean, might as well. My parents
Heck
were
yeah.
out doing something. I was at home with my brother and a
Okay.
friend, and we had a little like a fire pit in the back, and my dad had this big blue bottle of tequila. Well,
Mm.
I mean, we weren't even planning on drinking. We were just gonna barbecue some meat and kick back, but then at some point
Mm.
somebody had the idea, it probably wasn't me, had this idea to to have some tequila, so
Right.
we start drinking the tequila. We're like mixing it. We don't know what the hell to do with this stuff. We're like
Yeah, of
mixing it in a
course.
blender and all these different things. Well, long story short, we're out by the fire. My parents come home,
Mm.
and they go and they're talking to my brother and me, and like, how you guys doing? How was the night? And my brother's like, oh, the night was great. The green was meat. My mom was like, what? He's like, the green was meat. And I'm like, dude, the meat was green. And like the next morning, I remember my dad came and he was banging on a pot and pan early morning. He's like, time to get up, guys. I'm like, oh my God,
He knew exactly what was
he
up.
knew exactly what was up, even though I filled the tequila bottle up with water in the hopes that he would never
Of course
find
you
out,
do.
So anyway, but again, core memory, kids,
There you go.
be cautious with
Doing
your tequila,
wrong
but
things.
core memory. I think that's like what comes up for me though in this conversation the most is the importance of reconnecting with those people in your past in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm. And it's funny how time will paint a different story, right? It's just that how much time you've had, whether it's somebody that broke your heart or some great experience. It's great that you can learn and grow and heal from like stories that aren't so great, but it's also great that the stories that were once like those core memories don't lose their edge. They still hit you right in the feels, like right in the sort of pleasure center of your brain where like I just remember lighting up. It's funny because we talked about stealing that whole reconnection thing, talking about childhood. We talked about stealing your parents' booze. We didn't have any booze in the house, but obviously most kids do have parents that have booze. And they said, so again, they used to do the same thing, fill it up with water. And they said, again, talking about how your childhood informs your parenting, they told their kids, like, listen, I know you're gonna like steal booze. Here's what you don't do. You don't drive. Like they just lay it out. And they say, don't you dare pour water in it and ruin my booze.
Right.
Right? Like just don't wreck it. Just own it. You won't get in big trouble if you don't do any of these stupid things, right? And I think that is great parenting.
Yeah. I mean, educating people, your kids and people about it is better than hiding it, and not, I mean, cause
Right.
it's a real thing that happens to people, right? I mean, they have no
Mhm.
education around it. It's like,
Right.
don't touch this, don't touch this. And then the next thing you know, they have some freedom and they're like all over it. That's all that they do. So I think that
Mhm.
there's like a balance between like, you don't want to sit there be feeding your kids alcohol, but also you want to make sure that they're aware of what it is and
Right.
what it can do and how to approach it in a safe
How
way.
to negotiate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Exactly.
Something that's crazy that's happening with my kids right now is they're like in this
Hmm.
hiding mode. They're like
Mm.
hiding, not like as far as like hiding behind things so I can't find them, like hiding shit. They don't want to tell me the truth. They're never telling me the truth.
Oh.
And I'm not like, I don't care. I'm not like, I'm never like really all that mad at them unless they're like sitting there
Right.
lying and I know that they're lying.
Right.
Like my baseball cards. They love my baseball cards. The last 2 days, randomly, I find boxes of my baseball cards by the toilet in the right down on the ground by the toilet. And so I'm like
Right.
going there late night to go to the bathroom, and there's a box of baseball cards, right? And I'm like, it didn't come from me. I didn't put my baseball cards on the ground.
Right.
It was one of you two characters. So this morning,
Hmm.
for example, I'm like, hey, Owen Sawyer, found some baseball cards by the toilet last night. And both of them are like, wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm like, oh, did mom do it? Or was Bandit out there digging in my baseball cards? He moved them in there. Like, I don't know what that's all about. Like, why? Did you go
Right.
through a period like that? Or is it this kind of a
I mean,
natural thing?
I feel like it. I think all kids go through it, and I think it's it's probably part of the human experience, right? Like you have to conceal, oh, I don't want to deal with it. Let me try to get away with it.
That's the
And some
fun
people
part.
build careers out of that skill. I don't recommend it. It's not sort of the favorite thing to do. But like being able to be a good liar can, I hate to say can serve you well, but it can serve you well, but in a way that's ultimately not, you probably wouldn't feel good about yourself. At least I hope you wouldn't feel good about yourself. But you see it all over the place.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean,
So
I
it's
guess
just
you
a
could
part of humanness.
you could probably spin it and like get it to work in your favor in an integrate way. Like
Yeah,
I've thought
probably.
about that too. Like
Right.
for Owen, I'm like he'd probably be a damn good lawyer,
Right.
because he
Say
can
just enough.
like you can't bullshit a bullshitter kind of thing, like
Mm-hmm.
that sort of a thing. He's either gonna be a damn good lawyer or some kind of career criminal.
Right. Well, for same for me. Like I used to tell, so I lied all the time as a kid, but not in the way that you were talking about, like concealing things. I used to invent stories because
Oh,
my life wasn't great, right? So I would just, hey, what'd you do over the summer? And instead of saying like I didn't do anything, I would make up, oh, I just traveled here, and it's always as a boy. I met this girl. Oh, she was so hot. Like, like, oh, and we did this, we did that. Didn't do any of those things, and just, but I spun it so well
yeah,
with detail and color that people believed me.
yeah,
And then sometimes, like, I never intended, there was never an intent to actually deceive them, but I would forget to come clean, and be like, that didn't happen. And then he was like, I would get called on it and like, no, that didn't happen. Like, but you said, I'm like, oh yeah, that's just a story I made up, and then get myself in a little bit of trouble.
yeah,
But it was a skill, and I still use the same skills today of storytelling, although without deception and a fabrication.
yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
that tell us about your experience when what was the group that you were just doing the keynote for? What's it
It was
called?
called the ICISF, the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation.
Okay. And so when
Yeah.
you go and you do a keynote for an organization like that, do
Hmm.
you most of the time tell your story, your
I
combat
do.
story, or what is it? What do you typically do?
I do. I typically use, right? So I'll use that story to pull out what the message that I want to get. So if it's about resilience, it's about overcoming adversity, and sort of in this case, it was talking about yoga, mindfulness, and meditation. So in order to preach, for lack of a better word, about the positivity and sort of the dynamic effects of mindfulness meditation practices like yoga, like sitting in meditation, breath work, etc., is to, you got to paint the picture of how catastrophic your mental state was over certain things, and then how when you added the tools, it had this benefit and impact, and so that healing and that these tools and practices are available for everybody.
Hmm.
That's sort of like, that's where I thought it would be best served for that audience, is to do that. But it's like, like I am a professional speaker, but I really call myself a professional storyteller, because a lot of times professional speakers, and I don't mean this as a ding or a knock, it's just different strokes for different folks. They'll open your thing, it's like, here, we're going to talk about this, one, two, and three, and then and then so there's a format. It says, tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them again. That's a sort of common thing that you'll see in some of these sort of talks. They call them motivational, call them informative, whatever. So they open up with like, hey, we're going to learn about these three things, boom, boom, boom. And then you tell them about those three things. And then they wrap up by saying, we just talked about these three things. And it sort of drives home. Like if you're trying to like imprint a certain message or way of being on someone, it's
Right.
pretty effective. But I prefer to engage in a story because we are genetically wired to learn by hearing stories and to share by telling stories. It's part of our DNA. Um, Reminder: we should do a talk on the power of storytelling because we need a whole session for it.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Just
That'd be
the
amazing.
phenomena that happens. A lot of research and studies come out of Yale and a bunch of other academic centers around the world around storytelling and the phenomena that happens in your brain. And so I prefer to use that to share stories because I don't have to tell them. If they're engaged with me, they get it. Like, I don't need to be like, this is what you need to think about. They will just be thinking about it. And so they will get what I'm trying to give them simply by listening to the story. And so I'll usually tell the story about what happened to me, but not always. Sometimes I'll sum it up. Hey, I'm a bilateral amputee, lived with a traumatic brain injury from combat in Iraq, went through a nightmare to get to this place, and then I'll tell different stories. So I'll just like frame it to just give people like, hey, this is where I'm coming from, without necessarily telling that story. And then I'll use whatever other stories that gets the same result.
Got it.
Whether that's a story about finding yoga, or whether a story about a relationship, or a story about success or failure, or anywhere in between, just spinning a good yarn well enough that they want to listen to you. And that's the key.
What role does writing have in developing your story?
Early on, it was really powerful. I wish I needed it more, because then I would have finished my book by now.
Right? I didn't even know you started a book. How far along are you in your book?
I'm 7 years in, and I might as well be 7 days in. That's how far I am in my book. I break it down. That's not good enough. I don't like the order. Change. Right. Change it. Speak, translate, speak, change it. It's a perfectionism thing. That's a flaw of mine too. Like, I want it to be perfect. And I'm coaching myself out of that. And with help of some other people, coaching myself out of that. Just done is better than perfect.
Gotcha. That makes
so,
sense.
but it is really important to write. At least it was early on. But then once I got the stories out, and then I just started speaking them, is when it helped me remember more. And then I would write notes to keep myself, hey, I don't want to forget this one part. But the story is so alive in my body that I could just go, I want to tell this story, I want to tell that story. And I'll say, I can tell that story in 20 minutes. Because if you have like 1 hour, and in this case I had 1 hour, I'm like, I need to spend 20 minutes on this story to set up 15 minutes on this story so I can close in 10 minutes here and then add anecdotes for 5. Like, just sort of amalgamate that together into an hour. And it's so great too, because usually there's a thing called a confidence monitor. It has a timer telling you where you're at.
Okay.
And then I'll see that time hack, and I know if I'm a little over, I just have to shift gears quicker and get to the story, and it keeps me in integrity and right on time every time.
Yeah, it's similar to like when I'm teaching a yoga class, or I'm sure when you're teaching a yoga class, if I go too long in vitality, I'm like, okay, igniting is going to be there are going to be a few less backbends today. Right. Skipping frog
exactly.
today. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Gotcha.
Oh, darn.
Oh man. So what was the response from the crowd from your keynote after the fact? What people come up and chat with you? Did you have time to do that too?
Yeah, I always make time, especially in those scenarios, because there's kind of like my people, a bunch of first responders who've like seen some terrible things. I mean, these are the people that respond to school shootings, to floods, to fires, to, they see the worst of humanity on the regular. So I definitely wanted to, especially if they had any questions about yoga or any questions about mindfulness or meditation or breath work or really anything, that I was available to, at least if I didn't have the answer, point them in the right direction.
Yeah.
And it was great. And they all jumped out of their seats when, it was over, that whole standing ovation thing that as a speaker feels really good. It's also a little awkward, but it feels really good, especially because they're like my people, know?
Yeah.
And it was, every speech is fun for me, like when I do it, but there's something about doing it where time sort of stands still. It's like it was over and it felt like I was talking for 5 minutes instead of an hour.
Yeah. What do you accredit that to?
Flow state. Yeah. Just like being in the, like, literally, I was prepared, which is very important, right? I was prepared. I had meditated. I had just sort of played it out, visualized it over time. And then it's funny how, like, when you sort of paint the picture, it's sort of the universe sort of unfolds for you in that way.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens.
That's amazing, man. Good. I like the visualization too. We should even do a show on visualization.
Absolutely.
I think like that's a part of my That's a part of my growth that I'm really looking forward to developing. For some reason, I just have a challenge sitting and visualizing. It's never been really simple for me to do that. Although I have been able to get a little bit of momentum with it and whatnot, but I do better almost like writing something out or drawing something out and then looking at it every day as a reminder, like a goal board or a vision board or whatever like that. Like
Right.
that's like some sort of a visualization, like as if,
Absolutely.
like I got one up here that I look at all the time. I've got one in my closet I look at all the time. Katie's got one in the closet.
Nice.
But just like sitting, closing my eyes and being able to visualize things, I think that's an incredible skill. How long have you had the ability to do that? Have you always kind of been wired like that?
Well, I mean, it's from sports as a kid. Like I was a very athletic kid,
Yeah.
but I didn't play school sports very often because I was never eligible to finish a season because my grades were so bad. So,
chasing
uh,
down lights at the airport. That screwed you up a little bit.
I mean, but I was a skateboarder, and so that visualization helped me skateboarding. So we lived randomly. So in South Baltimore, there's a place called Lansdowne, and Lansdowne had a pretty serious concrete bowl skate park in it, which is completely out of place.
Huh.
It was like from the 70s, or like the old snake runs where people used to ride their longboards and carve through the snake runs and stuff. But you can manipulate it for modern street skating. So there was like the corner, the double humps, the Smurf. Like there were like all these places that you would go to practice your street skating tricks. And that's where I learned visualization. Like I would see my line. I'm going to start here. I'm going to come around and get speed. I'm going to hit the corner, come in hot, like, like whatever I was going to do, and land, pump over these double humps, hit the, it was called a mogul. They called it the Smurf because somebody painted it blue, like with graffiti with spray paint.
The
And
Smurf
then so like,
mogul.
and I was going to do this and like do that, like, and I would sort of visualize the line and then execute. And the better I visualize it, the more often I would execute.
Hmm.
So that's, I think, where I got the sort of the belief in that it works. So if
Yeah,
it works there, why won't it work for everywhere?
totally, man. Well, it does work everywhere. It reminds me of when I was playing soccer in college. Our coach, Jeremy Gunn, he's been the coach for Stanford University for the last, I don't know, 10 years, but we were with him. I was a redshirt freshman. And then for 4 years
Mm-hmm.
after that, I started at Fort Lewis College. And the whole objective for that 4 years that we were there was to win a national championship, And
Right.
at first, his coaching style was very like hard. It was like you come into preseason out of shape, you're going to be doing breakfast club, which is an extra practice before the other practices where you're basically just running your ass off, and to get
Right.
into shape. Like, so it was like that for like 3 years. And then he had this coach come in that he'd met who coached with Arsenal in
Okay.
England, and an older gentleman. And I remember the older gentleman was like, God, do you think that breakfast club is really necessary, Jeremy? And he's like, oh, and then they would have like these discussions about it. And then slowly breakfast club kind of went away. And we started
Mm-hmm.
practicing like more intentionally on specific exercises to improve the formation and this and that. But another thing that we did is we had this sports science visualization meditation man come in. His name was Dan, and he would fly in, and we would all lay on our back in the auditorium or the gym, whatever, and he would
Mm-hmm.
walk us through every single person in their position the day before a game, what they were doing, what they were supposed to be doing. Nick, visualize catching the ball, distributing it out to Adam on the right side. Visualize Adam taking it down the sideline, kicking it up to your right winger, like all the way up. Visualize all the way to the point where John kicks in the net and see the net, and then hear the crowd, like all the way. We'd be on our back visualizing, And as a college kid, I'm like, this is great. This is way better than running sprints, man. Like,
and
yes.
probably more beneficial.
Yeah, and probably like programming the mind, because ultimately, like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that shit, like I'd be like, "Whoa, I already saw that happen." Like something would happen that we visualized, and I remember being like, "Damn, this stuff works," And so my senior year, we won the national championship, and it was like all those little shifts I think that we made mentally to get programmed in a way that we could be successful were the reasons that happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was killer, dude. So yeah, visualization. That's something that's high on my list, dude. I gotta visualize making some more money.
Amen, babe. Don't
Hey
we all?
man,
Hey,
making
shut
some
up.
more money, seeing you in person, all those things. That's
Right.
got to happen soon, man.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, hey, what would you say as like a synopsis of this show that we want to leave our listeners with today, Dan?
Well, I mean, just thinking about it right now, I'd say like it's important to go revisit your past, whether that's good or bad. Hopefully, there's some good in there somewhere, right? Uh, and to just reconnect with people that maybe aren't every day part of your life. You know, um, I'm still like a little bit giddy over the interactions I have with people I haven't seen in 30 years because the connections as we had as kids were so strong and so powerful. Like one of the ladies, my old friends, who was celebrating her daughter's 21st birthday, they said, "Yeah, come out to this place and buy my daughter like her first legal beer."
Hmm.
And so in doing that, I was able to like, I mean, I always remembered like her name was Gina Bartholomew. And she was like my first girlfriend that I remember calling a girlfriend from like middle school. Like obviously there was no shenanigans happening. It was like holding hands was like, oh, like, that, but like, I was like, hey, I used to date your mom in sixth grade. Like, and talk about how we'd be on the phone on the long cord that went from like the kitchen and you'd be like all wrapped up in it because you don't know what to do with your emotions and you're just like, hey, are we gonna make out? Like, because you don't know what to say, like, right? And like, it was just really fun and funny and like so powerful, and just made me realize the power of those connections. So I'd say a synopsis like, hey, man, don't shy away from the opportunities to see your old people, and know that you're probably going to learn something from it. And if it is too much for you, maybe there's a chance to let go of something that doesn't serve you anymore.
That's money, man. That's money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. You know, for me, it reminds me of the importance of really reconnecting more with my parents and my brother who are still here.
Right.
Life is short. I get busy. And I think in the practice of mindfulness, right, people say, hey, get present, stay present. So I'm present. I'm
Mm-hmm.
present in my life and what's going on. But then I forget about life that's going on outside of here. And I don't always
Mm-hmm.
create the time to get present with my mom or my dad or my brother or my cousins and those people that really I grew up with that know me from a totally different era where I was establishing myself as a human being. Those people are really important for me to reconnect with. So yeah, I'm with you. The mindful dudes, this is the mindful dudes telling you, hey, reconnect with those people. You never know what it's going to bring up, drudge up, and give you some
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to clear some stuff out, to create some space for yourself, but maybe even like give you the ability just to reconnect who you are, like really honestly, truly, like deep down, and from your experiences in life like that.
Like that. Amen.
Amen, dude. All right, the mindful dudes. This is Nick Clark and Dan Nevins. You can always
Yo,
find us on Play Hard and Love Big Radio. Just scroll through the episodes, the ones that say mindful dudes. That's Nick and Dan trying to peek through your inbox to
that's,
say, hey,
oh yeah.
oh yeah. Closing words, brother. What you got?
You know, uh, sorry for just going, oh yeah. Like I feel
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh yeah.
Don't be sorry.
Man, I'm gonna send you a reel that's funny that we should edit into here if we can. That just I love it, and I can't do it well enough by saying it, so I'm going to send it to you because it really talks about what I just talked about there. But anyway, closing words for me. I learned from someone who I respect very much, who's a yoga teacher, also a professor of psychology. She coined this term that you have to feel so you can heal, and I love that. And we talked a little bit of like the nostalgia, happiness, joy connection of like reconnecting with people. But sometimes when you reconnect, you're reminded of things that you haven't healed and haven't purged. It's a reminder for me, like when something bad comes up, I have to just be in the experience of feeling it all the way through to I feel like I've felt enough. And then I can make the choice to let go.
Hmm.
Right. But you can't do that successfully without feeling like giving whatever source of pain or anguish that is in your life without giving it its time, to run its course through your emotions, and then to be able to let it go and choose to be done with it.
Yeah, and those things don't necessarily even have to be things of your past, right? I mean, like for a
Yeah, it can
lot
be
of
right now. Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
for a
absolutely.
lot of people, myself included, like the struggle that you're working through on a daily basis, like being present with that, choosing not to check out day in and day out, choosing just to be with whatever it is you're experiencing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like just trust and have a trust and faith that by being with it that you'll grow stronger and heal from the experiences so that you can pass it on to your kids and have empathy for your kids.
Amen.
You know,
Epigenetics too. There's something we could talk about.
epigenetics, that's a big word for me.
It is, but I mean, literally, like
True.
when you heal and take the time to heal, your kids are healed.
Mm.
And so they don't take that sort of ancestral drama into their life. And people can call that hokey pokey and weird and like not true if they want, but in my experience, it happens too often to be a bunch of poo.
What you're saying is
Like it's
repetitive behaviors aren't repeated. Is that what you're saying?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
break the cycle. You know, we say whatever moniker you want to put on it,
Yeah.
but yeah, change it for your kids so they don't have to do it
Yeah, man,
for
you got
theirs.
it. You got it. Yeah, you can't rush your healing. Number one, you got to heal to
Mm-hmm.
feel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to feel
And
to
you got to
heal.
feel to heal.
You got to heal to feel, and you got to feel to heal.
Feel to heal. It's a
Mindful dudes.
circle.
It's a circle, baby. Hey, awesome. Hey, thanks for following us. And Dan, thanks for being here with me. It's been a pleasure, brother. I love hanging out with you.
Likewise, brother.
One thing I want to mention too, dude, Rory McIlroy. Dude, you started it all off.
Legend, right? I'm like, hey, Rory, you didn't invite me to the Masters, but I'm still with you, and that's why you won. Just so you know.
That's it. There's like a hair follicle or a piece of DNA or something that's on one of your
Right.
clubs on your bag that came
He
from
knows.
Dan.
He called me his good luck charm. He's still got it. Like I know. Like, and I'll continue to root for Rory, class act, until the Ryder Cup, and then he's on his own.
Okay.
That's the U.S. versus Europe.
Yeah.
So he's on the European team, so he can just die in a hole on that week. But other than that, go Rory.
Oh my gosh, dude, you're the man. Thank you, bro.
Thanks, brother.
See you, everyone.
Cheers.